Hello everybody, welcome once again to the Matuska Taxidermy Supply Company Thursday afternoon Facebook Live. I'm here with Brett Wingfield, Tom Matuska, and another nice day in Iowa Great Lakes.
Very nice today.
Shaping up to be a big weekend. We missed the ice cream truck today.
Oh, meetings.
We had an insurance meeting with all the employees, and ice cream came, and we just couldn't stop for the ice cream truck. So I'm
about a quart low.
I know we are a quart low today. So it's a gorgeous outside. Expecting a little rain this weekend, I think, and the tourists will be pouring in, I think, probably tomorrow about noon.
Get your groceries now.
Yeah, get your groceries now. This week, we're going to embark on a rather, it's probably exhaustive, many-segment program of mounting a Bobcat, and it's kind of a custom Bobcat.
Yeah.
We have a custom pose, and so you can, we're going to show you a few alternatives rather than ordering a Bobcat, not getting the pose that you want, and having to send it back and reorder. And if you've been ordering mannequins from any of the supply companies, us included, it's not as easy as it used to be. Things don't come the next day. A lot of times, everybody's experiencing the same thing we are. We have limited staff. The COVID thing kind of changed the work environment, it seems like. So getting things done for us is a little harder than it used to be, and we kind of see that with some of our competition too. It's not just us, I guess.
No.
They're experiencing the same thing. So rather than having to rely on your supply company, you might have to do things for yourself. Yep. If the foam supply ever runs out, we're going to be back to wrapping bird bodies, and we even thought about doing a live sometime about doing that sort of thing. That's what we used to do, and we did it every day. And you probably didn't, did you?
No, I've done a few.
I told you about it. But making your own parts, don't be afraid to make your own parts. You know how to mount things. You know what things need to look like to go inside. So making them, we may be back to that someday.
You can carve a fish body, you can carve a bobcat just the same.
The supply chain is changing every day. And when I started doing birds in the 70s, the only wire I had was coat hangers. And I cut apart a lot of coat hangers. And someday maybe we'll have to show you how to cut apart a coat hanger and sharpen the ends and straighten them. You know, that's what we used to have to do. And wire is one of the things that from day to day we never know if we're going to have wire, and different sizes. We can get, 12, 14, but we can't get 16. Or 16 might come in today, and a month from now we can't get, a different size wire. So don't be afraid to, panels. If you have to make your own panel, we used to make all our own panels. We used to glue boards, walnut and oak boards together. We use plywood with, the core, that fiber core centers, that made a respectable panel without showing the plywood edges.
We might have to take live out to the wood shop.
We might have to do all that stuff. Yeah. And today is just a little example of that. We have a Bobcat, and I think we have a picture of the pose that we want to do. And do you have it up there? It's kind of a little picture. You can probably see it. But customer wanted a Bobcat, so we get the Bobcat, and he wants to know his choices and poses. Well, the choices of poses are endless. There's no end to what you can do for the customer, but he has to settle on something and decide, and then that gives you the opportunity to go through the catalogs, see what you can find. You're going to get the Bobcat in, you're going to measure him. We have those really nice measurement books that Mandy's put together, or Gary Zahner, life-size mannequin diagram on there. and it has, you just enter the number. So nose to eye, it's got a nose to eye, it's got a nose to the back of the head. It's got a whole lot of leg measurements, circumference measurements. Fill that out when you skin the animal.
Yeah.
And then if you know what he wants for a pose, this customer, I sent him, I just took some off the Bobcat images on the internet. Some of you maybe even mounted that one. You know, you might be able to see your mount in there. But I sent the customer numbers, number 3, number 4, number 2, and a couple pages of these, and that will narrow it down to what he wants. If you have some in your showroom, he might walk right in and say, ooh, I like that Bobcat right there, and that's exactly what I want. Yeah. But in this instance, he settled on this one, and it's on a big, gnarly old piece of driftwood, which we can't replicate that. We would have to look a long, long time to replicate that, but we can come up with a nice looking base, and he was more interested in the pose. And this Bobcat is angled down, head up, kind of in a passive attitude. He's not a snarly, growly Bobcat. He's just kind of hanging out, maybe thinking about crawling down this, you know, incline. And so we went through the catalogs, and this is a rather large cat, and we just couldn't find exactly what we wanted. Brian Hendricks has some in McKinsey's that were close, either going the wrong direction or something didn't match up very good. So I think you mentioned we have a really nice Bobcat sculpted by Cindy Chrisman that it's just a standing Bobcat. Well, a standing Bobcat is a long ways from that. Mm-hmm. So here's your choices. You can order a Bobcat online, or you know, on one of the catalogs that is either bigger or smaller, and then adjust it to your skin, or you can get a pose that fits perfectly and then change it, even though it's not the right pose, change it into the attitude that you want. Yeah. And that's kind of what we're doing. We have one that's maybe he could use a little inch in length, we think. And tell them about this, because this Bobcat, literally, if the customer chose this pose, I'm going to say you could have had this Bobcat completely finished in a drying position in less than a day.
I think so. So that was our Bobcat. We knew by measurement it was going to be pretty close. So we thought, well, it's made with the legs separate and the torso and head all in one piece. So we thought, well, since the legs are separate anyways, we could try to arrive at the same pose knowing that it should fit. But the first step of any project should be to test fit your skin. And that's what we did today. We test fit this ahead of our live, just in case. We like to make sure we're not
we didn't get in a bind halfway through this program.
And it does fit. It fits tremendously. And this was a case skinned cat that we real short incision on the back of the leg, of the front legs, and so he's opened up through the back of the hind legs all the way across, and we were able to slide the front left leg into the leg hole up into here. The legs again are sent separately with the mannequin. So we took one leg and slid it in that side. We slid another leg in the other, then slid the torso and head up into the skin as well. And we're able, because those legs index, the shoulders index with our little peg system, they index right into place. So I just put a pin through those, and then we put a screw in the back legs and test fit the back legs, and we were able to see that this fit indeed is going to work really, really well. Some of you might cringe at the distance we are from the pose. We're going to have to turn him around, make him rear end high, head low, but you'll see after we get through this, that's not too bad an alteration. From once you have a good fit, I think if I had to choose, I personally would choose fit over pose almost every time, because if he doesn't fit in the length and he doesn't fit in the girth, more than likely he's not going to fit in the forearms. He's not going to fit in the hind legs. You're going to have girth issues and length issues. And when you get a nice fit, it's an easy alteration. So
we always told students when they looked in a catalog for the, they'd bring specimens to mount, and they could never find exactly what they wanted. And because they don't realize what you can do with foam, you're gonna turn into a little, Michelangelo, and you're gonna sculpt this into the pose that you want. But you have two choices: get the size, change it into the attitude, or get the attitude and change it into the size. And like you said, the size done well and sculpted to proportion by a talented sculptor, the size that fits all the legs should be the right size, the belly should be the right size, everything should already be there, and that's half your job. Changing him into the attitude is going to be much easier.
Yeah.
And something you mentioned, all of the legs come separate on this, and we call it the easy ship method because shipping charges the way they are, many of our mannequins, like the bears and things like that, the legs come separate and they go on very, very easy. They have little index pegs that go right where you want them. If you needed to move them forward or backward a little bit, you can without making them look awkward. And you can rough them up and you can glue them in, or you can use big screws to hold them in. That, along with your hide paste, along with if you want to auto body them together, you can do that. But you put this together so fast, and those legs slid right up under the skin, and you had to have a little struggle because he's not a loose fit by any means.
Yeah, it took some doing. It wasn't terribly hard, but we had to stretch and pull and manipulate the skin. But I think if you look at the time that it saved, well worth the struggle, I think. It's sewing that cat up, like you said, we could have easily, if this was our pose, we could have him drying in a few hours.
And then if I slide the rock base, this one is available with its own base, and if I slide this base under here and you hold the cat up in this pose, and we'll see what we're going to do with him. Now this is all styrofoam. It's 10-pound styrofoam, extremely durable. The wood is nearly as strong as real wood. Okay, go ahead. I'm going to loosen him. You go ahead and lift up his back end a little more level. A little more. Yeah, and I think that's kind of the attitude of oops, is he slipping?
I think we're up on the... We got a foot.
But that's the attitude of this Bobcat mount and the base that comes with it. He's a little straighter.
I think our feet are off a little bit.
But that's not what we need. We need him going the opposite direction. Yeah. We need him looking to the right. He is now looking to the left, and we need him going downhill in a relaxed position. So, should we take that off and show him what we might want to do?
So, I think we'll...
I want to see if this comes off as easy as it can.
I don't know about that. I've just got a bunch of pins holding the skin on. And again, we test, and I would probably encourage anyone, make sure you do a good test fit all the way. Test fit all of your legs, because sometimes we get careless or quick in our test fit and we fit one leg and you end up pulling all your skin back to get that one leg, and what you don't realize is you pulled it away from another. So if you pin all of your legs in place and pin all of your nose and he still fits, you should be in good shape. And so we did that. You're going to see I've got a whole bunch of pins in here.
The interesting thing about life-size taxidermists is they want it to fit, so they imagine that it's going to fit. So you get one part to fit and you think, yep, good. And really you got to, like you said, go ahead and pin it the entire length.
Darn optimistic taxidermists.
In this hide, we tanned, and we like to tan most of our, you know, life-size animals like you know, bobcats, beavers, raccoons, you know, fox, things like that. I always have, just because you're in control of the knives and the machinery, and I think we're more careful. When we split the ears to the edges and flesh around the face, I think we're a little bit more careful, and compared to some of the tanneries that are maybe doing, you know, 30 fox a day or something.
Yeah. Now, another thing, we can show them how our legs peg into place by doing this. Kate, if you want to get a shot of that. So we mentioned those legs just index right in place, just like that. Now, this mannequin was poured special for us because we knew we were going to alter it. And you want to tell them why and what?
We knew we were going to be cutting this apart, and by putting leg rods in it, or I think this comes in probably about a 10 gauge wire, I'm going to guess, and we would be cutting into all that wire. So the one thing about pouring mannequins, it's hard to control where that wire is going to end up in this leg. So we may, you know, you're going to know that you want to, that cat can bend at his knee, he can bend at his ankle, but if that wire happens to run down through the meat of your thigh, it's not going to bend where you want to, so you're going to have to cut that wire anyway. So we asked them, when we ordered this, to go ahead and make it without wires. We can always put wires in. Wires are really easy to put in, and we'll show you how to do that when we, probably a couple segments from now maybe, to put the wires in, and you can do a better job than just having them free floating in here.
So if one of these people out in taxidermy land wanted to order a bobcat without wires, how would they do that?
They just call in and say, I want a bobcat without wires. We do that quite a bit. We do it when we order life size.
Yeah.
If you ever have to know that you're going to be doing some alterations, especially the mountain lions, leopards, things like that, get them, we prefer to get them without leg rods. When you have to start bending leg rods and the leg rod isn't in the right spot, you can't bend him where the cat can actually bend, and you end up having to take the leg rods out also. And any supply company should be happy to pour legs without leg rods for you.
You do risk, just in case,
getting them broken.
Yeah, they may come broken, but you're going to end up repairing them anyway, or cutting them anyways. So
they may come in a box, you know, broken half, because they don't have that leg rod support. But don't be afraid to do that. We do have many people who watch our program that don't have the experience that others do, and a broken leg would throw them into a tailspin. You learn after you've been in this business a little while, that's a little item.
Pretty
and you're
minor,
if you're gonna be altering things anyway, you're gonna have the foam out, auto body putty, reinforcing wire, that sort of thing. That's a real easy thing to fix. So don't get too excited if you order them without leg rods and something gets broke. And I think for tanning, when we tan this bobcat, we like to use Lutan F on our small animals, and put them through a formic acid pickle, flesh them. One trick too, if any of you have experienced slippage on your fox ears, fox are extremely fragile in the ear, like the tips of the ears, inner ear skin and epidermis. Long time ago I learned, I think from Brad Colson, said make sure that you, when you salt them, let the ears dry very, very well before you hydrate them. And I used to fight every fox keeping the hair and epidermis on the tips of the ears. Once I learned to let them dry, don't be in a rush to get them into a pickle. Let them dry, and I have not seen that in years and years and years.
So you let them dry before they go into the pickle?
Before they go in the pickle, let the face dry. Another thing, any of you have been mounting deer, I get this question every once in a while. People are mounting deer and their thumb slipped along the muzzle of the face, and wiped off all the hair all the way down to the skin. And
Yeah.
I know exactly what they're talking about because that had happened to me. Again, let your faces dry,
Yeah.
very dry before you rehydrate them, and that won't be an issue. Now, just because if you get a bobcat form like this and it's got indexes where the peg can only go in one place, you can cut that peg off and you can move that leg back an inch or forward an inch,
Oh, sure.
as long as you don't throw him off balance. So this is a square tapered peg. Don't be afraid to, force it one way or the other or cut it off and do it that way.
And those front shoulders aren't really connected to anything, so that one connects at a hip joint, but the front shoulder can kind of float, so that is something that if they cut that little square peg off, they can easily move that shoulder.
Now, what about heads? What if that bobcat body fit just perfectly and maybe you have a female head and you got a big tom that you're mounting? Then what do you do?
That's a really good question, and we're probably going to run into that with this because we do have a cat with a really big head, and that was something that we didn't show you test fitting, but he is pretty loose up there in the head, and that's another thing that we do with our deer too, is that we have gotten the habit of they can clay it up or do a lot of different things, but we like to use our change-out heads. And there are some really good change-out heads out there. We've got a couple of them. And I think we picked up some in a show too that might end up working for this.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid when you took your measurements from your whatever it happens to be, deer, sheep, lion, bobcat. It's very helpful to take width measurements, we call it E, between the eye orbits, some facial widths, as well as your length. And when you get your mannequin, they don't give you all that when you order. When you get your mannequin, compare that because you're going to want to put in what you took out. Caitlin, did you have a question?
Yes, we've got, Jared Embry says, you gave me that tip this spring with the fox ears. I did it exactly as you just described, and it worked perfect.
Oh, good. I thought he was going to say the hair fell off.
And this salting tip is critical for fox ears. Don't sleep on this tip.
That is the simplest advice ever. And I, at one time, thought I was a pretty proficient fox master. And every time I tanned a fox, not every time, but I would lose the tips of the ears or the tip of the tail. And the tip of the tail, the hair would fall out. Well, the very first fox I mounted, the very first was for a good friend of mine. The tail slipped, the first 3 inches of the tail slipped, and as well as the ears, I'm sure. And I had to fake that to make it look like a foxtail. And that took me some trial and error to figure out. But any of you tanning animals with long tails, that tail is nothing but a closed tube of skin, and all of your juices are trapped in there, all of your pickles are trapped in there, all your neutralizers are trapped in there, as well as your oil, and it will ferment in the tip of the tail, and you lose your tail. So I learned a long time ago, always make a small cut in the very, very end of your tail. Let all of your fluids drain through. When you salt them, we take a wire and we carefully poke salt down into the tail and out the end of that little cut. It's a cut you're probably going to have to fix because you don't want glue dripping out, but you'll never have a slip tail.
And that's if you pull the tail, correct?
If you pull the tail.
If you pulled the tail, rather than lay it open. If you lay it open, you wouldn't have a problem with that, but yeah.
And I do have 2 more questions. The first one is from Diana Ward, and Diana would like to know, how do you rehydrate fox and bobcat that are salt dried?
There's a lot of recipes. I guess I don't want to over soak them, but I would make a saltwater bath of either half pound of salt per gallon of water. This is just me. You might have
Yeah,
a
nope,
different one.
that's-
Half pound of salt per gallon of water to a pound of salt per gallon of water. The more salt you put in, the slower they are going to rehydrate. A lot of people will put them in plain, cool water, and they rehydrate really fast. But that scares me. I want a little bit of protection like the salt in the water. The other thing I just have always done is put bactericide in.
Yep.
Always put a splash of bactericide. Right now we have X-Effect. We've gone through several good hospital disinfectants. A lot of phenol based, but phenol, they're trying to get away from phenol nowadays. That's the menthol type smell that you smell in bactericides. But X-Effect is not a phenol based, and it's a good hospital disinfectant, which will keep bacteria from growing, which will keep your hides from slipping. And try to soak those, rehydrate those in the shortest amount of time. I would say a Bobcat, thinned properly, should rehydrate in 1 to 3 hours.
I would think so.
I don't like to leave them overnight. Scares me to do that, but some people do. Thicker animals like a deer, it's going to take several hours to rehydrate.
Yeah. And halfway through sitting in the water, you can stretch
Stretch
them a
'em,
little
yeah.
bit, separate that skin and structure so that the water can get in it. That'll help speed it up quite a bit.
And if you get them rehydrated in the water, then I guess I would like to wring him out, get him somewhat dry, put him in the pickle, and he can rehydrate in the pickle for as long as he wants.
So you're probably only what percentage rehydrated when you take him out of the initial?
Maybe 50%
Yeah.
or less. I would rather put him in the pickle somewhat stiff rather than soak him too long.
And that's just because with the formic acid pickle, he's safer in there.
And see, like at the tanneries, they have rehydration vats which are continually in motion. Like we used to use the old Ringer wash machines. I had one of those, and I would put salt water in it, and the Ringer washer was always, they're open at the top, and you put the hides in, and they would soften up in half hour because they're constantly being worked.
Continually
And if
moving
you
that
wanted to
skin.
do that, they will rehydrate much faster.
Right, we've got Peggy Budkis who wants to know why not cut the form in half to fit the skin.
You can do that.
Absolutely, yep. I'm sure could. This worked really well with the legs off. The legs are molded off, so we didn't have to cut the form. We talked about the possibility of having to cut the head off. Sometimes if the head won't go through the neck skin, that's a cut that's pretty easy to make. We like to make a little V cut and it indexes back in, but that's also one that if
And
you're
you can
gonna
put it
tube
through the
skin
mouth.
Yep. If it'll go through the mouth,
Yep.
That's another place.
There was a person, a lot of you new people probably wouldn't know, but Bob Elsner from Apache Junction, Arizona. Bob was a pretty proficient sculptor. I think sculpted a lot of research forms maybe. But he had a method of mounting javelina where he only had a case skin, just like you did, and he would cut the head in a V off, slide the head up, put glue on it, slide it up through the back of the animal, do his facial work or rough it in. He would cut a V after the front legs, stick those front feet forward through the tube, down through the leg holes. He would have a glue on the V cut. He would fasten those two together. Now your feet are already down in the tubes, and then all he had left was the back, and he'd put it together, and all he had to do was sew up a lot like what you have, the back inseam of the legs, maybe a little bit on the front hooves. And any of you that have mounted a javelina, they're not a big animal, but there's a lot of sewing to them. He could probably do 4 to 6 a day, you know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to do that. Cut them into bite-sized pieces. People even do that with crappies and fish like that. We've seen that when we judge fish. People put fish in by pieces. Yeah.
Got Colleen Geyer, I apologize. When do you like to wash your cat? After the lutein or after mounting?
We usually do them after, right?
After mounting,
Because we do them after mounting, because we would, if he was really, really clean, and you can wash him twice, but we typically don't. We roll him around on our table. We got glue in here. We got dirt in here. Dropped him on the floor a couple times. You know, by the time, if he had been washed, he's not very clean anymore. So once he's completely sewn up, we have a grate that goes over our sink, and we would take this bobcat over to the grate, drench him with room temperature water. Ice water doesn't work so good. I don't want to get hot water on him. And then we have a great shampoo that we use for fur, and we lather him up just like a poodle and rinse him really, really good. Depending on the animal, bears and mountain goats and things like that, we like to cream rinse.
Yeah.
So we will take a little warmer water and we will lather him up with cream rinse. We actually, if you put the cream rinse in the water, you can dump it on and it soaks in, and let that cream rinse work on that hair. And I think our life-size fur bears or animals with lush pelts, I think they come out prettier than any I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then you got to blow dry them. Blow dry them, blow dry them. And we have a, you can towel dry them for a little bit, but then we have a livestock, like the 4-H kids use at the fair, and we will put this on his stand and we will blow and blow and blow till he's dry. The livestock blower has a warmth to him, but it's not like a hairdryer heat. People, I always marvel at people that are charging $600 for a half life-size bear. We charge $600 just to groom our bear.
Yeah.
I mean, our bear are to die for. Our bobcat pelts, our fox, they radiate, their hair radiates, and a fur bear has, I mean, that's the trophy of the animal, and we think we make them look pretty nice. But anyway, we spend a lot of time and we wash them. We might wash them ahead of time if there's blood or something in them, but our main washing is going to be after they're mounted.
Yep. Yep.
That it?
Nice.
Okay, now, should we show them where we'd go from here?
Yeah.
We want him, now look at that. He's kind of curved the wrong way. He's kind of looks like a banana.
Yeah.
And we got to go the other direction. So we have to curve him this way, and we have to get his rear end up in the air and get a little climbing action to him. This isn't going to be easy for a live presentation, let me tell you.
We're going to have some work to do, but we have a base up here, but it helps to know what the contour of your habitat is going to be. And
see, according to the picture, his hip on the show side is going to be hunched up. He's going to be standing on here, so this leg's going to probably be forward, and his elbow will be back, and a little high hip on the back, looking into the wall.
Looking right at the wall.
So that base looks like it will work. And anytime you buy bases that are already bought, don't get locked into what the catalog shows you. You can use that for a fish. You could use it for upland game birds. You could use it for anything.
And we've seen some really creative stuff.
You know, you can use it like this, any which way.
Yeah.
You could cut this branch off and you can have it sticking out here. You know, you got to be a little bit creative and think outside the box. But
I like it kind of vertical. That's kind of keep going. Yeah, there.
You can have your stringer up here and your trout hanging down. There's some of you, and we see it at shows all the time. Some of you are really creative thinkers. You lose that the older you get. But I used to think I was more creative than I am now. But don't get locked into what you see in the catalog. Yes, Caitlin.
Okay, we've got Marco raised, and Marco wants to know, do you recommend making a cut from the back or belly?
That's a good question. If you were going to open this cat up, I think Bobcats are kind of iffy
There.
on that decision. Dorsal cuts on some animals are great. A bear, a fox, a coyote are super easy to cover that dorsal cut. A bobcat, you can run into a slightly more even hair. And so if you're a really good seamstress or really good sewer, depending upon your pose, a dorsal cut would work. What do you like for a bobcat?
A lot of people do a dorsal cut on a bobcat, and if I can't see it when it's done and it worked for you, go for it. Not a problem. It's probably the easiest thing to mount, especially on this pose, because you slide his feet up like jammies, you know, slide his head on. You can cut all the way up to there if you wanted to, or you can slide that on, or you can put him in pieces too. You can, you know, cut that and put him in 2 pieces. Lots of people do a dorsal cut, but if I see the seam, and what happens is you get your skin misaligned this way, or you get puckers in it as you're pulling the stitches. It makes me sad because they have such a nice hair, and up on the wall like that, nobody's ever going to see it. But it's not going to look as nice as this.
Yeah. Especially when you fluff them and back blow them. A poor seam back there is
But there's
hard
people
to hide.
that can cut this animal in half that way and put it together, and nobody's going to find it. It's all in how careful you are. And sometimes people think by taking small stitches and pulling them really tight, that's going to hide. That'll crinkle up like, you know.
Railroad tracks.
Yeah. So that's not the answer either. Some animals are very conducive to dorsal cuts. A raccoon, you would think would be a perfect one for a dorsal cut, but you screw up your stitches and it's going to show. Any of them, I guess.
Yeah.
Mountain lions, I see at shows, a lot of really nice mountain lions, and you can see something's wrong right down the back.
That dorsal incision's tough to hide on an even hair.
And the reason I'm talking like that is I've screwed up more dorsal incisions than any of you ever will. So I've done a lot, and I've hid some, but I've botched some too. So when we worked in the locker plant, every animal was skinned through the belly, you know, and that's how I grew up doing my mammals too. You know, and a lot of times you get them from Africa, or you get them from out west or Alaska. They're all, not all anymore, but a lot of them were belly cut, so you had to deal with that. But it's hard to find that in that long hair that comes down. But it is 3 times the sewing too, you know.
All right, Justin Merrick wants to know how much you charge for a bobcat mount. I live in, okay, I'm bad with my abbreviations. I believe it's Virginia, VA, and I can't charge that much.
That's a touchy one.
I feel sorry for if you can't charge that much. First of all, you've got to make your bobcats look good enough that anybody who sees them says, that's what I have to have. They have to have your work because yours are better than anybody else's. You see a lot of $350, $450, $500 bobcats, which you might think is very expensive, and you know they look like this. They're cross-eyed, they're wiggly-eared, filled with auto body putty. The claws look like overstuffed mittens full of clay. That's your competition. So you're going to have hundreds of dollars in a bobcat like that compared to $1,000 in a good bobcat. There's a lot of people out there charging. Would I be off by saying a couple $1,000s for a bobcat on a nice
No, it wouldn't be off at all. I think that would be, I think to do a really good one, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of comments both directions, but like I say, this is touchy, but I think for us to do a really nice bobcat, I bet we'd be between $1,800 and $2,000.
And don't forget, you got to do this part of it too, and that's a major thing. I mean, you might be able to go out and find a piece of wood that you can put him on and put a hanger on it but that would be pretty rare. It's going to take making something or buying something.
This one's going to work for us pretty nice.
What does this cost?
$130
$130, and that'd be about.
And shipping, so there's some more in shipping, but they probably watched us a couple weeks ago make an elk base, and if we could have bought that elk base out of the box, that would have been much faster than the way we did it, putting it together. But
I have charged little for my stuff, and I've charged a lot for my stuff. And when people come to pick up something that I'm really, really, really proud of, and I gave them some kind of a deal and didn't get paid very good, I just feel worthless.
yeah, that's not a fun feeling, to know how much time you put into it and not feel like you're getting paid for it.
Okay. Are we ready for this?
I think so. I think they're ready to see us do something.
I know. Been talking. This is, and you can buy these, but nothing more than sharpened. You sharpen those wires, and we can skewer him on there. We can skewer him on, if we wanted to, we could skewer him on sideways.
Yep.
Or we could skewer him down like this.
Yeah.
And that allows us to work around him 360 degrees. This is a Fothery mounting stand, and Bob Fothery also makes a pad, you know, like, what do you call them? I don't know what to call them.
Just that
Like
little
this,
accessory.
with welded, I think it's got 3 welded spikes on it.
Yep.
And we use that on the
right
Sable.
Yeah, it's on the Sable.
It's
so
on the Sable right now.
we would be using that if we had.
But you can make your own. And just make sure that if you sharpen up those wires, you're going to skewer this on there. Make sure if you do that, that you cover them when you're walking around them so you don't
lose an eye.
poke yourself. It's kind of nice. You can raise him up and down, and we can change whatever angle we want him to be, you know?
Yep.
Stephen Eastman would like to know if you guys will be using reflective eyes on this Bobcat.
I don't know. If we had
can get
reflective
'em.
eyes, we would use reflective eyes. I like them.
Yeah, I think we have some. I do. I think we have some downstairs, or at least a few weeks ago, I think I saw some. But
The last shipment got blown up by the Ukrainians.
I'm
pretty sure.
we might have to improvise. We might have to paint our own
Because
if
they
we can find any.
we do that. They come from Russia, and they're difficult to get anymore. And before we run out of time today, and this is going to be an ongoing thing. We'll probably get you started in the right direction, and then we'll work on him between now and the next session, and then we'll show you what we did there. Then we'll maybe do ears and eyes and that sort of thing, and then we might have to, you know, get the hide on and sew him up while you're gone during the week, and then, you know, so if we waited and did it, it'd be till Christmas time or something like that. Okay, should we, he's going to be going down, so he's going to go your direction, right?
Yep. I think he's going to twist, just like that.
And what do you think? Do you want to straighten him first before we put him on?
I think we could stand to take a little bit of turn out of that.
And it would be nice if we did it just like this, going the opposite way. If I got you a pen, do you want to draw on there what you think you should do?
Sure. Make me make the lines.
No, charging for your work, if you're a professional taxidermist and you've done this forever and you know exactly how long something's going to take you, you can kind of guesstimate, you know, what you have to have, and then charge an hourly rate like at least what you could get at Walmart, which is quite a bit these days, I think.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And but you can, you know, add your labor in. When you're just starting out, you don't know how long it's going to take you, and there's going to be a lot of trial and error, like, oops, I shouldn't have cut there. I guess now I got to put that back together. So you're not going to be as proficient, or as, you know, you're going to be more labor intensive than if you.
If we were to have done this several times.
Several times, yeah.
And charging, I have my boat at the boat repair place. An hourly rate for my boat is a lot. I wish we could charge that in taxidermy.
And what is the hourly rate to, I'm going to guess to fix a boat, if I had to take my boat to the marina and get it fixed, I'm going to bet they are at $180 an hour.
I found a deal a little less than that, but not very much less than that. An hour, that's just labor, that's not parts. Labor is $140 an hour.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. So when people say they can't charge for taxidermy work, I think you can't charge for poor taxidermy work, but you should be able to charge for good taxidermy work. Now, I was just putting a line on here kind of as a guesstimate as to where we're turning it, but do you want to tell them a little bit about where we're turning and why?
Well, they're kind of like, something that's very, very helpful is if you have dogs or cats at home. I have always used our domestic animals to see what they do and what they can and can't do. And every creature will bend, if he can, will bend along his spine.
Yeah.
So the right and the left, like you're doing, some people will take that, you're going to cut a V out of here, I'm going to guess.
Yep.
If you took that V all the way over to this side, you're going to end up shortening him a lot over here.
Yeah.
So if you bend the animal only where he can bend, which would be his spine, his center line, the proportion should stay proportioned.
Yep.
He won't get long on one side.
Yeah. So we're going to put our pivot point right where the body would pivot is at the spine, rather than our pivot point be all the way over there. So this, if we look at the seam line, don't always count on the seam being in the center, but this looks fairly centered. So I'm just going to use the seam line as his spinal column, or my guesstimate for the spinal column, and it looks like he bends quite a bit in this section of his body. So I'm thinking we might take one there and maybe one right here, right behind his shoulder.
I don't want to say you can't take too many, but you really can't take too many because he can bend at every vertebrae.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you only bent him in, let's say, 2 places, you're going to get corners in your animal.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So if we were to deal with, we'll deal with the head and neck maybe later, but if we were to deal with just the body right now and try to get the body moving, we know that we're going to bring him back around on this side. I think that's the point of the most turn, so maybe we'll just do a couple of those first and then see how it looks. And again, we're taking a V notch out. I think the rest is pretty straight. We might have one more back here in front of the hips, but.
Now, if this is new to you and you've not done many alterations, or maybe none, when you look at the pose that we started with and the pose that we're trying to make it into, it's overwhelming. Like, oh my gosh, you know, there's too many. We got legs that have to bend. We have legs that have to go back. We have legs that have to go forward. We got a body that's got to go the opposite direction, a head that has to be tipped up. It's way too overwhelming. So what we're doing here is, if I rotate that, can you see it real good?
That's pretty
What we're doing here is kind of dealing with the thorax of the body only. Don't overwhelm yourself with the head chin tipped up or the legs bent yet. We're going to do just the trunk of the body first. Okay, should we do one?
I think so.
Okay.
And we can show them with one how much turn we're going to get. Maybe we don't need all 3. Maybe we need 5.
Now, you can hand me your little saw there.
Oh, yeah.
You can do that with a tool like this. This is a little Irwin, we call it a foam saw. It's very flexible, very easy for this. Now, I'm only going to cut halfway through. I'm cutting to where his spine would be. Then I do the same over here. A little off.
You're pretty darn close, though.
You saying that so I sound good?
No, I think you're right on it. Yeah.
Okay,
You're perfect.
so out comes that little piece. And you can save it if you want to and put it back in the other side, but we'll probably just foam the void in the other side. I'm just trimming up a little where I was off a little bit. Okay, so that's one of the first ones. And now if I cut this other side, this should be able to articulate over, and then I'm going to have a void like this on this side, right?
Yep, that's the idea.
Now, if I were to hit that perfectly at your V, it's going to fall in half.
Yep.
But if which is hard to hit it perfectly. But if I'm off just a little bit, it's going to hold together with a sliver of foam. And if it falls to half, that's not a big issue. We're going to screw it back together. And if this doesn't turn out for you, you get a mounted fish and you cut him in half and you add the head to it and you call him a catfish.
That's funny.
Okay. Now I see
There you go.
I've got some wiggle here. So if I were to bend him over, can you put a couple screws in? And
Yep.
you got one?
Yep.
Now these are just,
Oh, yeah.
we do a couple, oh you got, that's
Yeah,
probably plenty big enough. We use a lot of torque head screws here. They're a little on the expensive side compared to regular screws, but they're very nice to use. And then if we're doing big things like a bear mannequin, you know, something really big, we like to use landscape screws.
Timber screws, yeah.
Okay, should I just start bending?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to go a long ways till it cracks. Okay, go ahead and start screwing and you can screw it open.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Got about a 1/4 inch to close yet. I'm not quite hit, I don't want to hit that foam just yet. There we go. Ready?
Mm-hmm. Okay, one more? Or good?
Yep, I think we're good.
All right. Now you start doing this. Just a quick story. When I was a younger taxidermist, we used to wrap our muskox and everything. No, but I had ordered from Rayline. Very few of you will remember Rayline, but they had a muskox. and I ordered a muskox from Rayline, and when it came, it was already in 6 pieces. So the head's separate, and they, just to get it in the box, they cut it into all kinds of pieces. I had to make it, I can't remember, either bigger or smaller, and my wife Vicki is teaching school, and so I'm up here slaving away, and I started cutting my muskox apart to make it whatever, bigger or smaller, and I ended up with like 13 pieces, and I literally didn't know if I could get it back together. And the muskox at that time was $900, and I was going to have to tell her when she came home from school, honey, I just blew $900 because I can't get this back together. But I was able to get it back together, and luckily muskox have a lot of hair, and I got him back together, and he looked good. But you will get to a point on things where you start cutting them apart, and you go, oh my gosh, I think I ruined something. Should we keep going?
I think so.
Okay, we're going to speed this up a little bit with Milwaukee makes a couple of nice, great little saws for the taxidermist.
I might have that screw in your cut
I saw
line
that.
there. So
I'll try to,
have to.
I might miss it. And with a metal blade like this, you can make short work of it. This is the 18 volt. They make a little 12 volt also, which we could not live without here. Okay, I hit your screw, but it's in an awful good spot. Okay, I'm going to try the other side without shaking him apart.
That way, just a shade, yeah.
Sounds like the first time you're on a moped. Okay. We'll try that one.
Move them over a little. I'm going to put the screw further
Yep.
back so I can try not to get into that cut line for next time. I'm just gonna hit, and I've only got about a 1/4 inch to go, so I might have to use a longer screw. Is that gonna hold?
I don't know if it'll hold, but will for a while.
We could take one from the top too.
Go ahead,
Pull-
stick one
I
more.
could pull this one out. You want to bring it over a little further? Maybe I'll just, yeah. Take one through here. This might be better. Just trying to stay away from your cut spot. That might be better.
Okay, now we have him. He's turned. Now he looks like a snake right now because we haven't done anything with the head. We got to do the head too. You can cut these one at a time, and then you can pour foam in here, in both of these, and make your first cut real solid. Then do the second one. Then do the third one, and you can firm him up as you go. But then if we went too far here, now you got to cut it again. So the idea is to get him as close to what we want with our cuts, and then if we want to loosen this and straighten him up a little bit, we can do it. Loosen this, straighten him up a little bit, we can do it. Bend him a little more, we can do it. So that's the idea, keeping him together. He is going to be a little fragile for a while, but that's what we do for now. So I think, is it time to go yet?
It's at 5:02, but I'm sure if we want to keep going, they'll keep going.
Well, we could keep going till ever.
Yeah.
I think while you're gone, mounting your own Bobcats, we'll probably continue to cut, and then in my head, we might change this as we go because we kind of fly by the seat of our pants a little bit here. We'll get this all cut and shaped, maybe foam in part of him, show you next session, show you how to do that, and then maybe we can start on legs. Maybe we can have a couple legs done.
Sure.
So that you don't have to sit and watch the whole thing. So when you join us next time, we should have this trunk of the body in the pose we want, curved out like we want, and maybe 2 legs done, and 2 legs we'll show you how to do. Then we'll show you how to put wires in and stuff.
Yeah. You can see now he still goes that way at his hips a little bit.
Yeah,
Looks like
he's
we'll
got
have to put another
now,
one.
keep
further
looking
back.
at that too.
Yeah.
Brett was just looking. I mean, we've got his head going this direction. We got a nice curve started here, and then he's swinging back the other direction. Yeah. So as you're shaping his spine, you'll know we're not mounting a garter snake, so make sure that you straighten him out as you go. I think we'll maybe not have him quite so sharp of a curve right here. Take that back just a little bit, and the way we'll do that is loosen a screw, put a screw in here, put a screw in there. Okay.
We'll make him look nice by next week.
He doesn't look like much now, but you stick around. He's going to be a beautiful, beautiful cat. And we have for a giveaway, we have our mammal book, mammal measuring book.
Life-size book,
nice.
yes.
We don't have one here to show you. We should have had one. It's the best thing you're ever going to have, especially if you're going to do life-size mammals. It's got each page you fill out with the person's name and address, all their contact information. It's got all the measurements you're going to need to make your mannequin fit the skin, or because you measured it before you skinned him. It works for, I think the picture is it a fox?
Wolf or fox,
Fox or
I
wolf.
think.
But you can use it for a raccoon, you can use it for an otter, you can use it for anything. The image anyway. And we just keep those in that spiral book, and we refer to them absolutely every animal that we mount. We wouldn't think of mounting an animal or doing something like this without our measurement sheets.
And the winner goes to Stephen Eastman.
Stephen Eastman, you're going to like it.
Yep.
You'll use
That's
it.
a nice book,
There's another one for game heads, I think.
Yep.
And
Yes.
all Stephen had to do was like and share, like and share, like and share.
Yep.
Yeah, so like and share this video right here, right now, to be automatically entered in next week's giveaway.
And get your own mammal book if you weren't lucky enough to win it, and get the game head book too.
Yep. Yep.
Very important.
All right, well, we will
Okay?
see you next
Thanks for
week.
joining us, and next week we'll have a little more done on this, and we'll just proceed until it's mounting time.
All right, have a good